Welcome, my friend. You've arrived at a space where you can slow down, rest, and drift with the rhythm of a story. Soften your breath. Let your shoulders ease. Allow the quiet of this moment to surround you. Tonight, we will journey together, far beyond the clouds, beyond the sky itself, and across the silence of space. We will walk in the footsteps of the first astronauts who touched the moon. It is not. If you find comfort here, I gently invite you to subscribe, so you can return whenever you wish, to more stories told, slowly, softly, and with care. And now, let us begin.
The 1960s were a decade of extraordinary upheaval. Across the globe, societies were grappling with change. Civil rights movements, decolonization, technological revolution, and the looming shadow of the Cold War. In the United States, the space race was not just a scientific endeavor, it was a geopolitical contest, a symbolic battle for ideological supremacy. The Cold War had begun in the aftermath of World War II, as tensions escalated between the United States and the Soviet Union. These two superpowers, representing capitalism and communism respectively, engaged in a global struggle for influence. This rivalry extended into every domain: military, economic, cultural, and by the late 1950s, it had reached the stars. In 1957, the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first artificial satellite. It was a small, beeping sphere, but its implications were enormous. The United States, caught off guard, feared that Soviet dominance in space could translate into military superiority. The launch of Sputnik marked the beginning of the space race. In response, the United States established NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, in 1958. Its mission was clear: to catch up and eventually surpass Soviet achievements in space. The early years were challenging. The Soviets continued to lead, sending the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into orbit in 1961. His flight aboard Vostok 1 was a triumph, and it intensified pressure on the United States to respond.
That same year, newly elected President John F. Kennedy addressed Congress with a bold proposal. On May 25, 1961, he declared, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth." It was a daring vision, one that would define the decade.
Kennedy's speech was not just about science. It was about leadership, unity, and hope. The moon landing would be a demonstration of American capability, a peaceful conquest that could inspire the world. President John F. Kennedy's declaration in 1961 was more than a policy statement, it was a rallying cry. At a time when the United States was grappling with internal divisions and external pressures, the moon became a symbol of unity and aspiration. The space race offered a way to channel national energy into a peaceful, visionary goal. The decision to pursue a lunar landing was not universally supported. Critics questioned the cost, which would eventually exceed $25 billion, an enormous sum at the time. Others wondered whether the money might be better spent on social programs, education, or poverty alleviation. But Kennedy believed that the challenge itself was essential. "We choose to go to the moon," he said in a 1962 speech at Rice University, "not because it is easy, but because it is hard." This sentiment resonated deeply. The moon landing became a metaphor for American resilience, ingenuity, and courage. It was a way to prove that democracy could achieve greatness, not through conquest, but through exploration. Meanwhile, the cultural landscape of the 1960s was shifting rapidly. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, challenging segregation and inequality. The Vietnam War was escalating, sparking protests and political unrest. Late Sunday's previous episode of the President Trump acting policy. The counterculture was rising, questioning authority and embracing new ways of thinking. In this context, the Apollo program offered a rare point of consensus. It was one of the few national projects that transcended political divisions. People from all walks of life, scientists, factory workers, students, artists, found inspiration in the idea of reaching the moon. It was a dream that belonged to everyone.
Television played a crucial role in shaping public perception. For the first time, space missions were broadcast live, allowing millions to witness launches, orbits, and splashdowns in real time. The Apollo 11 landing would be watched by over 600 million people worldwide, making it one of the most viewed events in history.
The media coverage was extensive and emotional. Newspapers ran front-page stories, magazines featured the astronauts on their covers. Radio stations played special broadcasts. The moon landing became a shared experience, a moment of global connection.
Internationally, the mission was seen as a triumph of human achievement. Messages of congratulations poured in from around the world. Even rival nations acknowledged the significance of the event. The plaque left on the moon, "We came in peace for all mankind," was not just a gesture, it was a statement of hope.
The Apollo program also had a profound impact on education.
Schools introduced new curricula focused on science and technology. Young people were encouraged to pursue careers in engineering, physics, and astronomy.
The idea of becoming an astronaut became a dream for countless children.
In the arts, the moon landing inspired a wave of creativity. Poets wrote verses about the stars. Musicians composed songs about space. Filmmakers imagined futures among the planets. The moon, once a distant symbol, became a canvas for human imagination.
And yet, beneath the celebration, there was reflection. Seeing Earth from the moon, small, fragile, beautiful, changed how people thought about their planet. It sparked the environmental movement, reminding humanity of its shared home and the need to protect it. The political and cultural climate of the 1960s was complex and turbulent, but within that storm, Apollo 11 emerged as a beacon. It showed that even in times of division, humanity could come together to achieve something extraordinary. It reminded us that the pursuit of knowledge, the spirit of exploration, and the courage to dream are universal. Let us now turn our gaze to the three men who carried the hopes of humanity to the moon: Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Their names are etched into history, but behind the legend lie stories of quiet determination, personal sacrifice, and profound character. Neil Armstrong, the first human to set foot on the moon, was born on August 5, 1930, in Wapakoneta, Ohio. From a young age, he was captivated by flight. He earned his pilot's licenses at just 16, even before he had a driver's license. Armstrong studied aeronautical engineering at Purdue University and served as a naval aviator during the Korean War, flying 78 combat missions. After the war, Armstrong joined the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which would later become NASA. He became a test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base, flying experimental aircraft like the X-15 at speeds exceeding Mach 5. His calm demeanor and technical skill earned him respect among peers. He was known for his quiet confidence, his precision, and his ability to remain composed under pressure. Armstrong joined NASA's astronaut corps in 1962. He flew as command pilot on Gemini 8, where he performed the first successful docking of two spacecraft in orbit. The mission merely ended in disaster when a thruster malfunctioned, causing the spacecraft to spin uncontrollably. Armstrong's quick thinking and decisive action saved the mission. When the time came to select the commander for Apollo 11, Armstrong was chosen not just for his experience, but for his temperament. He was thoughtful, measured, and deeply committed to the mission. He understood the symbolic weight of the first step on the moon, and he carried it with humility. And stay. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, was born on January 20th, 1930, in Montclair, New Jersey. His birth name was Edwin Eugene Aldrin Jr., but he later legally changed it to Buzz, a nickname from childhood. Aldrin came from a military family. His father was an aviation pioneer. Aldrin graduated third in his class from West Point and became a fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force. He flew 66 combat missions during the Korean War. Afterward, he earned a doctorate in astronautics from MIT, where he wrote his thesis on orbital rendezvous techniques, skills that would prove essential in spaceflight. He joined NASA in 1963 and flew on Gemini 12, where he performed a record-setting spacewalk. Aldrin was known for his intellect, his energy, and his passion for space exploration. He was a tireless advocate for advancing human presence beyond Earth.
During Apollo 11, Aldrin served as the lunar module pilot. On the moon, he described the landscape as magnificent desolation, a phrase that captured both the beauty and the emptiness of the lunar surface. His contributions to the mission were technical and symbolic, and he continued to promote space exploration long after his return.
Michael Collins, the command module pilot, was born on October 31, 1930, in Rome, Italy, where his father was stationed as a U.S. Army officer. Collins graduated from West Point and became a test pilot in the Air Force. He joined NASA in 1963 and flew on Gemini 10, where he performed 2 spacewalks.
Collins was selected for Apollo 11 to pilot the command module, Columbia. While Armstrong and Aldrin explored the moon, Collins orbited alone, maintaining the systems and preparing for their return. His role was critical, and his solitude gave him a unique perspective. He later wrote eloquently about the experience, describing Earth as a tiny, beautiful blue and white jewel suspended in the blackness of space. Though he never walked on the moon, Collins was deeply philosophical about his role. He saw himself as part of a team, and he valued the mission's success above personal glory. His writings and interviews revealed a thoughtful, introspective man who understood the deeper meaning of exploration.
Together, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins formed the perfect trio, each bringing unique strengths, each committed to the mission, each forever changed by the experience. Their journey was not just physical, it was emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. They carried the dreams of millions, and they returned with a message of unity, courage, and possibility. Let us now delve into the intricate web of engineering marvels and challenges that made Apollo 11 possible. This was not merely a mission, it was a convergence of thousands of innovations, each one a thread in the tapestry of human ingenuity.
At the heart of Apollo 11 was the Saturn V rocket, a towering machine of staggering complexity. Standing 363 feet tall, it was the most powerful launch vehicle ever built. Designed by NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, under the leadership of Wernher von Braun, the Saturn V was composed of 3 stages, each with its own engines, fuel systems, and structural components. The first stage, known as the SIC, housed 5 F1 engines, each capable of producing 1.5 million pounds of thrust. These engines burned RP-1, a refined form of kerosene and liquid oxygen, lifting the rocket through the lower atmosphere. The engineering required to manage the heat, vibration, and fuel flow was extraordinary. The engines had to ignite simultaneously and burn evenly, despite the immense forces involved. The second stage, the SII, used 5 J2 engines fueled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. This stage carried the rocket into space, shedding its weight as it ascended. The transition between stages was a delicate ballet of separation charges, timing circuits, and guidance systems. Any failure in this sequence could have doomed the mission.
The third stage, the SIV, had a single J2 engine and was responsible for placing the spacecraft into Earth orbit and then performing the translunar injection burn. This final push sent Apollo 11 on its trajectory toward the moon. The precision required for this maneuver was immense. Just a fraction of a degree off could result in missing the moon entirely. And above the rocket sat the spacecraft itself, composed of 3 main parts: the command module, the service module, and the lunar module, Eagle. Each component was a masterpiece of design, built to withstand the rigors of space travel. The command module was the crew's primary habitat. It contained navigation systems, communication equipment, life support, and re-entry shielding. Its heat shield was made of ablative material that burned away during re-entry, protecting the astronauts from temperatures exceeding 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The service module housed propulsion and support systems. It carried oxygen, water, and fuel, and it provided power through fuel cells that combine hydrogen and oxygen to produce electricity and water. A clever dual-purpose system.
The lunar module was perhaps the most unique spacecraft ever built. Designed by Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, it was never intended to fly in Earth's atmosphere. Its spindly legs and angular body were optimized for lunar gravity and vacuum conditions. The descent stage carried fuel and landing gear, while the ascent stage housed the crew cabin and engine for returning to orbit.
One of the most remarkable aspects of Apollo engineering was the guidance and navigation system. Developed by MIT's Instrumentation Laboratory, it included the Apollo Guidance Computer, AGC, which was revolutionary for its time. The AGC used integrated circuits, then a cutting-edge technology, and featured a user interface called the DSK-I, Display and Keyboard.
Margaret Hamilton, a lead software engineer, played a pivotal role in developing the AGC's software. Her team implemented priority scheduling, allowing the computer to discard non-essential tasks during overloads. This feature proved critical during the lunar descent, when unexpected radar data caused alarms. The software handled the situation flawlessly, allowing the landing to proceed.
The spacecraft also relied on inertial navigation, star tracking, and radar systems.
These tools allowed the astronauts to determine their position and velocity with remarkable accuracy.
The lunar module's landing radar provided altitude and descent rate data, helping Armstrong manually pilot the craft to a safe landing site. Communication systems were equally vital. Apollo used S-band radio frequencies to transmit voice, telemetry, and television signals. The Deep Space Network, a global array of antennas, maintained contact with the spacecraft throughout its journey. Engineers had to account for signal delay, Doppler shifts, and interference, all while ensuring clarity and reliability.
Let us now drift into one of the most profound consequences of the Apollo 11 mission. Not the moon itself, but the view it offered of Earth. For the first time, humanity saw its home from afar, suspended in the blackness of space. That image, simple and silent, transformed how we understood ourselves. From the vantage point of the moon, Earth appeared as a small, glowing sphere. Blue oceans, white clouds, brown continents, all wrapped in a thin veil of atmosphere. It was beautiful, delicate, and alone. There were no borders visible, no signs of conflict or division. Just one world, shared by all. This perspective gave rise to what many call the overview effect, a cognitive shift reported by astronauts who see Earth from space. They describe a sense of unity, of interconnectedness, of awe. The fragility of the planet becomes clear, and with it, a deepened sense of responsibility.
Michael Collins, orbiting the moon alone in the command module, described Earth as a tiny, beautiful, blue and white jewel floating in the vast darkness. He noted how everything he had ever known, every person, every place, every moment, was contained on that small sphere. The only exception was the three of them, drifting far from home.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, standing on the lunar surface, also felt the weight of that view. Though their focus was on the mission, the sight of Earth rising above the horizon left a lasting impression. It was a reminder of distance, of scale, and of connection. The photographs taken during Apollo 11 and later during Apollo 17, which captured the famous blue marble, became icons. They were printed in textbooks, hung in classrooms, and featured in environmental campaigns. They showed Earth not as a map, but as a living world. This new perspective helped fuel the environmental movement. Seeing Earth as a whole, vulnerable and finite, inspired calls for conservation, sustainability, and global cooperation. The first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970, less than a year after the moon landing. The timing was no coincidence.
Scientists began to speak more urgently about climate, ecosystems, and the need to protect the planet. The Apollo missions had shown what was possible when nations worked together, and now that same spirit was needed to care for Earth.
Philosophers and theologians also reflected on the implications. The view from space challenged long-held beliefs about humanity's place in the universe. It suggested that we are not the center, but part of a vast, unfolding story. It invited humility, wonder, and a deeper sense of belonging. Writers and poets found new language to describe the shift. The Earth became a pale blue dot, a garden. These metaphors captured the essence of what astronauts have seen, a world that is both resilient and fragile, both ancient and young. The overview effect continues to influence astronauts today. Those who travel to the International Space Station often speak of the same transformation. They return with a renewed commitment to peace, cooperation, and stewardship. The view from above changes the view within. Apollo 11 did more than land on the moon. It gave us a mirror. It showed us who we are, where we live, and what we share. It reminded us that exploration is not just about reaching new places. It's about seeing old ones with new eyes. Let us now explore the enduring legacy of Apollo 11, a legacy that continues to shape science, education, and the future of space exploration. Though the mission lasted just over 8 days, its impact has stretched across decades, influencing generations and guiding humanity's gaze ever upward. In the realm of science, Apollo 11 opened new frontiers. The lunar samples returned by Armstrong and Aldrin, over 47 pounds of rock and soil, were studied extensively. These materials revealed the moon's volcanic history, its mineral composition, and its relationship to Earth. They helped confirm theories about the moon's origin, suggesting it formed from debris after a massive collision with Earth billions of years ago. The mission also advanced our understanding of planetary geology. Techniques developed to analyze lunar samples were later applied to Mars, asteroids, and other celestial bodies. Apollo 11 laid the foundation for comparative planetology, the study of planets as interconnected systems.
In education, the moon landing became a catalyst for inspiration. Across the world, schools introduced new curricula focused on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The term STEM gained prominence, and students were encouraged to pursue careers in aerospace, robotics, and physics.
NASA launched outreach programs, distributing materials to classrooms and hosting events with astronauts. The image of Armstrong stepping onto the moon became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that with curiosity and effort, even the most distant dreams could be reached. Universities expanded their research in space science, and new institutions emerged to support the growing interest. The Apollo program helped create a pipeline of talent that would later contribute to the Space Shuttle, the International Space Station, and interplanetary missions. In technology, Apollo 11 accelerated innovation. The mission required advances in computing, material science, telecommunications, and systems engineering. Integrated circuits, developed for the Apollo guidance computer, became the building blocks of modern electronics. The need for lightweight, durable materials led to breakthroughs in composites and insulation. Life support systems inspired medical devices. The telemetry and data processing techniques developed for Apollo influenced everything from aviation to climate science. Apollo 11 also reshaped space policy. It demonstrated the value of long-term investment in exploration and the importance of international collaboration. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which declared space the province of all mankind, gained new relevance. The moon landing showed that peaceful exploration was not only possible, it was powerful. In the decades that followed, Apollo's legacy guided new missions. The Space Shuttle program, launched in 1981, built on Apollo's engineering principles. The Hubble Space Telescope, deployed in 1990, expanded our view of the universe. The Mars rovers, beginning with Sojourner in 1997, carried the spirit of Apollo to another world. The International Space Station, a joint effort among multiple nations, became a symbol of unity and scientific progress. Its construction and operation were made possible by lessons learned during Apollo. The station continues to host experiments that benefit life on Earth and prepare for future journeys. Today, the Artemis program seeks to return humans to the moon, with the goal of establishing a sustainable presence and preparing for Mars. Artemis draws directly from Apollo's legacy, using modern technology and inclusive teams to continue the journey.
Private companies, inspired by Apollo, have entered the space arena. SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others are developing reusable rockets, lunar landers, and interplanetary vehicles. The dream of space travel is no longer confined to governments. It is becoming a shared endeavor.
Culturally, Apollo 11 remains a touchstone. It is referenced in films, books, music, and art. It is taught in schools, celebrated in museums, and remembered in ceremonies. The mission story is retold not just as history, but as a parable of courage, collaboration, and vision.
Its legacy is not just in what it achieved, but in what it inspired. It showed that humanity can rise above its limitations, that exploration is a force for unity, and that the pursuit of knowledge is a noble path. Apollo 11 is not just a chapter, it is a foundation.
It has now stepped behind the curtain into the quiet corridors and humming control rooms where the unsung heroes of Apollo 11 worked tirelessly. These were the people whose names rarely appear in headlines, yet without them, the mission would never have left the ground. In Houston, at NASA's Mission Control Center, rows of flight controllers monitored every heartbeat of the spacecraft. Each console represented a different system: guidance, propulsion, life support, communications. These controllers trained for years, rehearsing every possible scenario. They were calm, focused, and precise. One of the most iconic figures was Flight Director Gene Kranz. Known for his crisp white vest and steely resolve, Kranz led the team during critical phases of the mission. His motto, "Failure is not an option," became a guiding principle. He demanded excellence, and his team delivered.
In the back rooms, support staff ran simulations, analyzed data, and prepared contingency plans. These engineers and technicians worked around the clock, often sleeping in shifts, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Their work was invisible to the public, but vital to the mission's success.
At MIT's Instrumentation Laboratory, software engineers developed the code for the Apollo guidance computer. Margaret Hamilton, who led the team, was known for her meticulous approach. She insisted on rigorous testing and built software that could handle unexpected inputs. Her foresight saved the mission during the lunar descent, when alarms sounded and the computer prioritized critical tasks.
In factories across the United States, thousands of workers built components for the spacecraft. At North American Aviation, technicians assembled the command module. At Grumman, engineers crafted the lunar module. Each bolt, wire, and panel was inspected, tested, and retested. Quality control was relentless.
Among these workers were seamstresses at ILC Dover, who sewed the astronauts' spacesuits. Using needles and thread, they stitched together layers of fabric, insulation, and protective materials. The suits had to be airtight, flexible, and durable. A single flaw could be fatal. These women worked with extraordinary care, often under magnifying glasses. Janitors, cooks, and clerks also played their part. They kept the facilities clean, fed the teams, and managed paperwork. Their contributions were quiet but essential. They created an environment where engineers could focus, where astronauts could train, and where decisions could be made. The astronauts themselves relied on trainers, doctors, and psychologists. They practiced maneuvers in simulators, rehearsed emergency procedures, and underwent medical evaluations. Behind every hour of flight was hundreds of hours of preparation. Public affairs officers coordinated media coverage, ensuring that the world could witness the mission. They managed press briefings, distributed photographs, and handled interviews. Their work helped shape the narrative, turning Apollo 11 into a global event. Even the families of NASA personnel played a role. They supported loved ones through long hours, uncertain outcomes, and emotional highs and lows. Their patience and encouragement were part of the mission's foundation. Together, these individuals formed a vast, interconnected network. They came from different backgrounds, held different roles, and worked in different places. But they shared a common goal: to send humans to the moon and bring them home safely. Their legacy is not just in the success of Apollo 11,
but in the spirit of collaboration it embodied. It showed that greatness is not achieved alone. It is built by many hands, many minds, and many hearts.
Let us now wander into the realm of myth, literature, and imagination, where the moon has long held a place of mystery and meaning. Long before Apollo 11, the moon was a canvas for dreams, a silent companion in the night sky, inspiring stories across cultures and centuries. In ancient mythology, the moon was often personified. In Greek lore, it was Selene, the radiant goddess who drove her silver chariot across the heavens. In Roman tradition, she became Luna, a divine figure of calm and reflection. These deities were not just symbols, they were expressions of humanity's longing to understand the cosmos.
In Chinese mythology, the moon is home to Chang'e, a woman who drank an elixir of immortality and floated skyward. Her story is celebrated during the Mid-Autumn Festival, when families gather to admire the full moon and share mooncakes. The tale speaks of love, sacrifice, and the eternal pool of the unknown.
In Hindu tradition, the moon is Chandra, a god of beauty and wisdom. He rides a chariot drawn by antelopes and governs the rhythms of time. The moon's phases are woven into calendars, rituals, and spiritual practices, marking auspicious days and guiding meditation.
In Native American cultures, the moon appears in countless stories. The Cree speak of the moon as a protector watching over the earth. The Inuit tell of a brother and sister who became the sun and moon, forever chasing each other across the sky. These tales reflect deep connections between nature, spirit, and story. Literature has long embraced the moon as a symbol. In Shakespeare's plays, it represents change, madness, and romance. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, the moon casts its glow over enchanted forests and tangled hearts. In Romeo and Juliet, Juliet warns Romeo not to swear by the moon, for it is constant.
Poets have written endlessly of the moon's beauty and mystery. Percy Bysshe Shelley called it pale for weariness, while Emily Dickinson saw it as a silver seal. The moon has been a muse for longing, solitude, and wonder, a quiet witness to human emotion.
In science fiction, the moon became a destination long before it was reached. Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon imagined a cannon-powered voyage. H.G. Wells' The First Man in the Moon introduced lunar inhabitants and strange landscapes. These stories stretched the boundaries of possibility, inviting readers to dream beyond Earth.
The moon also appears in children's tales. In Goodnight Moon, it watches over a quiet room. In The Little Prince, it is part of a sky filled with stars and questions. These stories teach wonder, curiosity, and the comfort of the night.
Across cultures, the moon has marked time. It governs tides, guides planting seasons, and shapes calendars. Its phases are woven into rituals, new moons for beginnings, full moons for reflection. It is both a clock and a compass, ancient and ever-present.
Even in music, the moon sings. From Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata to jazz standards like Fly Me to the Moon, it evokes emotion and imagination. It is a symbol of longing, of distance, of dreams just out of reach. Apollo 11 did not erase these stories, it added to them. The footprints left in lunar dust became part of the mythos. The moon, once unreachable, became a place touched by human hands. But its mystery remains. It still rises each night, unchanged, and yet forever changed.
Let us now pause and reflect on what Apollo 11 continues to teach us, not just about space, but about ourselves. Though the mission took place more than half a century ago, its lessons remain timeless, echoing through classrooms, boardrooms, and quiet moments of wonder.
First, it teaches us about courage. The decision to send humans to the moon was bold, uncertain, and fraught with risk. The astronauts faced the unknown with calm resolve. The engineers tackled problems that had never been solved. The leaders made choices that could have failed, yet they moved forward, not because success was guaranteed, but because the journey mattered.
Courage, in this sense, is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of it. Apollo 11 reminds us that progress often begins with a step into uncertainty, guided by hope and preparation.
Second, it teaches us about curiosity. The mission was driven by questions. What is the moon made of? Can humans survive in space? How far can we go? These questions were not just scientific, they were deeply human. They reflected a desire to understand, to explore, to reach beyond the familiar.
Curiosity is the spark of discovery. It leads us to ask, to learn, to grow. Apollo 11 shows that when curiosity is nurtured through education, collaboration, and imagination, it can lead to extraordinary outcomes.
Third, it teaches us about unity. The mission was a collective effort, involving thousands of people across disciplines, backgrounds, and beliefs. It was watched by millions around the world, transcending borders and languages. For a brief moment, humanity looked up together, sharing in the wonder of what had been achieved. Unity does not mean sameness, it means shared purpose. Apollo 11 reminds us that when we work together, when we listen and support and build, we can accomplish what once seemed impossible. Fourth, it teaches us about humility. Seeing Earth from the moon, small, fragile, beautiful, it reminds us that we are part of something vast, that our planet is precious, and that our actions matter. It invites us to care, to protect, to cherish what we have. Humility is not weakness, it is awareness. It is the recognition that we are stewards, not owners, explorers, not conquerors. Apollo 11 invites us to walk gently, even as we reach boldly. Finally, it teaches us about dreams. The moon landing began as a vision, a distant goal declared with conviction. It was built step by step through setbacks and breakthroughs. It showed that dreams are not idle wishes, they are plans waiting to be pursued. Dreams give direction, they inspire effort, they create meaning. Apollo 11 reminds us that dreaming is not just for children, it is for anyone who dares to imagine a better future. So as we look back on that moment in July 1969, let us carry its lessons forward. Let us be courageous in our choices, curious in our questions, united in our efforts, humble in our perspective, and bold in our dreams. And let us remember that the moon is not the end. It is a beginning. A reminder that the universe is vast, that our journey is ongoing, and that the next step is always waiting.
Thank you for traveling through this story. If you've enjoyed this journey, consider subscribing to stay connected with more reflections, explorations, and gentle narratives. Until next time, may your thoughts be calm, your dreams expansive, and your spirit ever curious.